I'm Chaz Kalenda, and I'm running to be the next Rhode Island Attorney General. I practiced law for the last 16 years, 12 of them in the office of the Attorney General, so I have the knowledge and experience to do that job at a high level. I'm not here to fight for a political agenda. I'm not here to fight for a special interest. I'm here to fight for the rights of every Rhode Islander, no matter where you come from or no matter what your background is. I'll need your votes on September 13th for the primary election and November 8th for the general election. If you have any questions about where to vote or how to vote, please contact your local Board of Canvassers or the Secretary of State's office or website. I'm not running to be just another politician. I'm running to be a public servant who can serve as a much-needed check and balance on the state of Rhode Island to root out the corruption both inside and outside of our system. We need your support. You can visit my website at chas4ag.com to learn more about me, donate, or volunteer your time. I'm Chaz Kalenda, and I approve this message.
To take home the Golden Gloves, you've got to put in the work, and you've got to be tough as nails. Ashley Kalis was driven to achieve. Today, Kalis is still fueled by that same hope, grit, and determination. A mother of 3 school-aged boys and successful business owner who ran testing and vaccination sites across the state. Kalis is the fighter Rhode Island needs right now because it's time for a change. Ashley Kalis for governor.
Good evening. Welcome back to the Washington Outsider Report on the Coalition Radio. For those newly joining the program, my name is Irina Zuckerman. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Washington Outsider. With us today is Rahim Hamid. He's an Ahwazi writer and analyst. He can tell us a little bit about himself and his and the research center where he works for in DC. And the topic we'll be discussing today is not at all controversial. We'll be discussing the protests in Iran and whether or not they can really bring down the regime, or whether in reality it's a lot of hot air, unlike what the Washington insider circles are saying. But that's why we are the Washington Outsider Report. We look at different perspectives, often outside the box. Rahim, welcome to the Washington Outsider Report. For those who don't know you or your work and your story, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you for having me, Irina. My name is Rahim Hamid, and I am a freelance journalist from ethnic Ahwazi Arab minority in South and Southwest Iran. I'm based in Virginia State, and I am working as a researcher at Dialogue Institute for Research and Studies based in DC. This organization is dedicated to raising awareness about the plight of Ahwazi Arab people and other ethnic minorities who always receive little or misleading coverage in international media outlets. So through this organization, we are trying to write investigative articles, studies, doing interviews with those ethnic minorities groups who are kind of marginalized and are denied to have a fair space on international media platforms, where their voices are always censored and ignored. So through this organization, we hope to provide incredible information and to correct the wrong image that Iran is a mono-ethnic country, and the people who are taking to streets are always protesting at economic hardship or civil or individual freedoms, while ignoring the ethnic diversity and their demands in Iran.
And could you tell us about a little bit more about the Ahwazi Arab population and your own activism when you were there?
Yeah. Basically, Ahwazi Arab people live in 3 provinces: Khuzestan, Bushehr, Bandar Abbas, and Hormozgan. Arab people identify all this region as Ahwaz region. The number of the population is always tricky, because Iranian government in its every 10 years recording of Iran population, they do not mention or anything about the ethnic identity of the population in Iran, and they do it deliberately in order to downplay the significance role of this non-Persian ethnic minorities who live and inhabit basically on the bordering areas of Iran. Ahwaz people in the south and southwest, Balochistan in southeast, Kurdish people in the west part of the country, and Azerbaijani Turk also are neighboring Kurdish people in Azerbaijani provinces. We have Turkmen, we have Gilak people, and but we do not see any official data about the true number of the population. But Iranian regime news agencies for several times mentioned that 70% of Iran population are bilingual, which is indicating that 70% of population of Iran are the Persian language is their second language, and they have their own language: Arabic, Kurdish, Turkish, Balochi, and etc. And by the way, this number of the population has always being as oppressive point in international media. Today, I have read an article was posted on Wall Street Journal, and I saw them that they mentioned that Ahwazi Arab population is 1.5 million. And I kept trying to communicate with them and explain the situation. They says that we used CIA fact booked on Iran population number, while this CIA fact book on Iran population has stopped 25 years ago and it's not updated. And I told them it's the case, but they didn't change it. For Iran, for Persian population, they are mentioning that Iran Persian are forming the majority of Iran population, while there is no incredible research done, not inside Iran, not outside Iran. And but when it comes to Hawazi Arab people or other ethnic groups, they depend on guesswork, or I don't know, which is really frustrating. And I think there are many groups who are influencing and playing a role in spreading this wrong information about the true number of population.
And who would be those groups, and why is anyone listening to them about this?
Can you repeat your question again, excuse me?
You mentioned that there are groups who are influencing this perception. Who are they, and why is the media listening only to them?
Yeah, I mean, there are many Persian opposition group who have a great influence in many think tank in the US, many newspapers, and they are providing this misleading and wrong information to these people, which is really frustrating. And even when we reach out to this group and telling them that you are using this wrong information, and we provide them with incredible sources, they ignore us because we are already labeled as separatists, troublemaker, I don't know, a bunch of awkward people who are trying to, I don't know, break up from Iran. We are not seeking for freedom, and we are not a qualified representative for our people inside Iran. So there are many, I don't know, they defame us actually, and we are powerless. The more we try, the more we get disappointed to correct this campaign that is launched against us for several years. And that's why we always try to establish our own organization and to reach out to different people to explain it. But it's a long way ahead, and we cannot correct everything in overnight.
Under the Trump administration, then Secretary of State Pompeo several times referenced the plight of the Ahwazis and the discrimination they faced, as did the State Department. What happened since then? How does the US government explain the sudden shift in rhetoric from acknowledging the existence of Ahwazi Arabs as a distinct ethnic group to going silent on that issue again?
Yeah, I think issuing only occasional statement is not going to do anything. As long as they are not listening to us, they are not helping us to reach to international media platform to talk about our suffering, and only allowing a very small number of people who are Persian to represent our voice, it's not going to fix this situation. You might remember that in 2019, when Ahwazi people subjected to a very a serious massacre in Mashur port city, which is a hub of petrochemical industry of Iran. The Persian opposition group they took advantage of this massacre. They says that hundreds of people being murdered by Iranian regime, but they never mentioned the ethnic identity of these people. They never mentioned Ahwaz. They used the Persianized name in reference to the city of Mahshur, but they call it Mahshar. And when we try to write about it, they label us as separatists. They defame us publicly, and I mean, they always censored us. So this is one of the major frustrating factor that, as we see the protests now going on in Iran, but Ahwazi people decided not to take part in this protest. And this is because they see that as Ahwazi people, they have been stung several times by Persian groups outside the country. They do not recognize our basic rights. They always denying our existence. And when Ahwazi people take to street, for example, protesting on basic fundamental rights like water or I don't know, the job, the Shah supporter and other Persian groups, they start claiming that these protests are not Arab. It's not. They are half of them are Persian, or they are protesting to in the favor of Shah. They are supporting the Shah, and at the same time they are censoring the Arab people, protesters who chant in Arabic, and that's why we see that when we estimate our gains and lose during the past protests, we see that it doesn't worth to take part in this protest as long as we see there is no potential change going to happen in Ahwazi people situation. So people are hesitant and they are not ready to give any blood so that other Persian groups only take advantage of it for their own interest while they are denying us. So this is one of the serious issues that no one is aware of, that international media or international observer who are watching Iran's domestic issues, especially the current protest.
Now, only a few months ago, there was another breakout of big protests in Iran, which involved a significant Ahwazi uprising. What is the difference between those protests and the current situation?
Well, Ahwazi people protests always are comes from within Ahwaz. We are protesting for our existence, to protect our existence. We are protesting against the Persian settlement that are spreading in Ahwaz region in order for Iran to change the demographic composition and makeup of the Ahwaz region and turning Ahwazi Arab people into a minority. We are protesting at the racial discrimination that is instituted against us in work, in education. We are protesting against the ecocide, the destruction of our environment, stealing Ahwazi river's water and sending it to Persian provinces. When we are protesting against this, we have seen no solidarity and support from Persian provinces, and even Persian opposition group. They are keep sanctioning us and censoring us, and they are even are intentionally bright, misleading report that this protest is only against changing the regime, while we are protesting against institutionalized racism that we see is not going to be changed, even though the current regime even falls. As long as Persian opposition group, they do not want to change their political discourse and to recognize us. So how come we participate in this current protest and again to give sacrifice and blood, while a week later we see nothing? We see no recognition. So it's a kind of very painful situation, because even if we take part in the protest, or even if we do not take in the protests, we see no change in our situation. We are stranded and hammered, both by the regime and both by the Persian opposition, who don't want to listen. They are keep insisting on establishing a democratic government, but the democracy that they imagine is only benefiting themselves. They want democracy like to have equal citizenship, but now Iranian regime itself says Ahwazi Arab people, other ethnic groups also are citizen, but the Persian citizen are much citizen. We're only citizen on paper. So the Persian opposition group, they don't want to change this reality. They want only to change the rule and keep Iran as it is now, citizen. But there is no right for cultural identity, ethnic, language, sovereignty, and they always suppress our demands by accusing us of being separatist. We're not separatists. We want to protect our existence. As an oppressed and persecuted ethnic minority, we have the right to protect our heritage, our identity. And they don't want to listen to that. They see that decentralization of Iran equals Iran disintegration, which is not true. Their discourse is going to end in Iran breakup, or will bring about civil war, because we see Kurd, we have see Turk, Baluchi people. They are not going to stop and accept a new dictatorship and a centralized government who denies our basic rights.
Now, some of the Persian opposition leading figures in the West have claimed that the current wave of protest that's been going on for over 3 weeks already has fundamentally changed the situation and has united various opposition groups against the regime and overcame the ethnic tensions and discrimination. How accurate is that? Has there been a fundamental change of acknowledgement and support, or have things stayed the same?
I think the current protest that we are seeing although we see that people are clashing with security forces, but it's not an indicator of unity. Clashing with security forces is not a sign of unity. I mean, the actors are absent there. Turk, who have a vast potential in fighting against the regime, they are not there. And this is because they are hesitant to take part in a protest and to sacrifice themselves and to see in other dictatorship to be imposed on them. Ahwazi people are the same, are absent there. So we see the protest in Kurdish areas and in Persian areas. And there are sporadic protests also going on in other ethnic groups, like in Balochistan, and you saw that Iran killed over 92 Baluchi people. But again, it's we have a distant, long way to see unity happens, and see that this protest turn into a possible revolution. There is no coordination between ethnic groups in this regard. Ahwazi people are absent. Turk are not emerging their potential in these protests, and this is all because of the regressive political discourse adopted by Shah supporter outside the country, and also other Persian groups who are advocating for a centralized government and denying any autonomy and federalized system in Iran.
How much coordination is there between Persian opposition groups in the West and the mainstream population in Iran? Are the people who are claiming to speak for Iranians opposed to the regime in the West, are they truly representative for what's going on inside the country, given that many of them have not been back in decades, and some of them were born or came to the US at a very young age?
Actually, the Persian opposition group, they might have a popular basis in Persian areas, but 70% of Iran population is inhabited by ethnic groups, and this ethnic population, they are following those ethnic human rights and political activists who are advocating and representing their voice in exile. So when the people inside Ahwaz are watching Ahwazi people outside the Iran speaking about how Persian is in exile, are denying us and labeling us with the same charges that the regime itself is imposing on us, they see that is no different between the current Iranian regime and the Persian opposition group. So they have they do not have a popular base inside Ahwaz or Kurdish or Turkish or Baluchi people. In Kurdish areas, we see that if Kurdish political movement issue a statement calling on a public strike, for example, next week in Kurdish areas, people respond positively, and a strike will be started. But suppose Shah, the son of the Shah, or any other Persian group issue a statement call Ahwazi people or Kurdish people to take part in a strike or take out to street. They will not see even one person to follow and cooperate with their statement in this regard. So they do not have that popularity. In Tehran or in Isfahan, yes, but in Kurdistan, Ahwaz, Baluchi areas or Azerbaijani people, no, because this group already, they have their own political movement outside the country, and people are listening to their own people and not to Persian groups who almost the same with the regime in their political discourse in denying and our basic rights.
Now, a lot of the political observers and commentators and analysts in the West have been calling the latest waves of protest a revolution. But is there anything fundamentally revolutionary? Are there numbers to support these claims? Do we see any of the security forces or the military turning to assist the protesters? Are we seeing the mass turnout that would indicate a fundamental change on the ground?
I think it's not possible to use revolution for the current protest. Iran is witnessing a protest for several years, and we can see in 2019 the turnout of the protest was maybe bigger than this one. But it was suppressed, and many of its people being killed and murdered by the regime, in addition to the largest scale number of arrests that happened after the protest. Iran is not witnessing a revolution. Iran is witnessing seasonal protests because of the severe crackdown that are taking place against people in Iran. Also, we should mention that the international media, they focus on the female nature of this protest, but they have ignored the ethnic minority background. For example, Mahsa Amini, or her Kurdish name is Gina, although she is a female, but they disregarded her ethnic minority background. The Iran revolution, if it's want to be started, it's need real coordination. It's need a serious work in exile. Persian opposition group, if they want to see a real change happen, they have to approach the ethnic minorities group and sit to them and recognize the rights in order to we see reassuring promises. Otherwise, this sporadic protest is going to be oppressed, unfortunately, by the government, and only we see yearly seasonal victims without a significant change. Unity comes with recognition from the Persian opposition group. Ethnic minority groups, I think they are the best defender of democracy because they have experienced various type of oppression and discrimination on this during these 4 decades. They also experienced a type of self-autonomy before 1925, and this memory is not forgotten. It's passed through their generation, and that's why they are fighting, and they are not giving up on their rights to see a self-autonomy rights in their own regions. This is one of the major issues that the Turkish people are not ready to get engaged in a protest that has no gain and a profit for them, only will be exploited by Persian opposition group in outside, and they will get fund, and at the same time they censor the same victims in Turkish Azerbaijani group or in Ahwaz, as we witnessed that in the past.
We are seeing that a great involvement of very young protesters, young schoolgirls, students, and so forth. What do you think is going to happen as a result of this protest? Assuming that there is no real change in the regime, assuming that they will continue crackdowns, what measures can we expect to be predictable as a result of this for the regime to take to make sure that the younger generation cannot really push back against the religious doctrine?
Oh, yeah, of course, the young generation, they haven't lived the days of the Islamic Revolution. They are the generation of social media, and they are keep witnessing the fast changes that's going on in the world. So they want to see a real change in their own situation. Maybe the government will, the reformist group will take advantage of this in the next presidential election and will advocate for broader freedom of individuals and to advocate for young generation. It will be kind of advantage for the reformist. Yeah, but it's not going to bring about a real change. You know, the things that we have to also note, the current protest started from Kurdistan. How many people have been killed in Kurdistan so far? Many. The Kurdish human rights groups say that maybe around 45 Kurdish people being murdered. In Balochistan, around 100. But the people who are taking to street in Tehran, in Karaj, in Mashhad, they do not subject to such a severe crackdown. Yeah, they will be beaten, they will face tear gas or something like that. But even in this case, there is a discrimination in the crackdown. Against ethnic group, we see that regime use a brutal, lethal method of shooting people by snipers, using helicopter, tanks in Balochistan, Ahwaz in the past, and now in Kurdish areas. Why in Tehran we do not see this, such a severity in the crackdown on the protester, and it's because of the ethnic minorities group are securitized region. Even the human rights lawyer and researcher working in Amnesty International, she's a Persian Iranian. Her name is Rahim Hamid. She acknowledged that, let me read what she says, if you don't mind.
Oh, please go ahead.
1 second, let me open this. Miss Rahab Bahraini, Amnesty International's and researcher and human rights lawyer based in London, said it seems that just because these provinces are already oppressed and marginalized, are considered sensitive regions, dozens of ethnic lives of non-Persian can be easily taken there in this brutal way. It seems that there is no cost to the Islamic Republic of Iran to kill this historically oppressed and discriminated ethnic group in this heinous matter. In fact, this is a state-sponsored oppression that has a legacy going back to decades, with the number of execution always being highest among Iran ethnic minorities. the statistics of death during detention are very high, which is in fact the result of decades of oppression and twofold discrimination instituted against non-Persian ethnic minorities in Iran. This is some part of her interview that I have translated what she was talking with Iran International TV in London. Now around, I think, 200 protesters being killed, and overwhelmingly 90% of these protesters are from ethnic minorities: Kurdish, Azeri, Gilaki people, and Baluchi, which we do not see that significant number of victims in Persian areas, because there is the regime is using very soft crackdown to disperse the protester in Tehran, while in ethnic minority regions they use lethal and very severe method to crack down on the protester. In the past, Persian opposition groups they repeated the same propaganda that the regime was spreading against the ethnic minorities, and they are now witnessing how Iran is brutalizing the protester in Kurdish or Baluchi areas, and they are part of this campaign, and they have to correct it or to work to stop it, and to at least to stop their political discourse and not to repeat the stereotypes that always imposed on us and label us as a troublemaker, extremist, terrorist. Now we see the result. So there should be no surprise why Ahwazi people are not taking to street. Ahwazis are Arabs. Ahwazis living on the land of oil and gas. They have participated in the protest in early days of 1979 revolution, and they had played a very significant role in changing the Shah regime. But Khomeini promises turned out to be deceptive, and instead he issued a fatwa or a decree issuing killing of over 500 protesters in 1 week in Ahwaz. That's why people are not ready to see the same fate again if there is any change coming to Iran. Though I see it as a distant hope, because unity needs serious work to be done among Persian opposition group, to sit with ethnic minorities group, to listen to them and to reach a mutual understanding what they want and what we want. They shouldn't define the democracy based on their own interest or their own culture. Iran is a diverse ethnic country, that each region has its own cultural boundaries, demands. Persian people are not concerned about their language or their identity to be eradicated. We are concerned about our existence, our language, our identity, our cultures. We are concerned about our lands that is polluted, we are concerned about our history that is eradicated. While in Tehran, they are concerned about economic issues or individual freedom, though we have that in common with them. But there are many demands that we want them to be recognized in order to a unity and coordination, so that we turn out to be serious actors and agency of change.
Given this cultural insecurity on behalf of the Persian opposition, and given this inability or unwillingness to listen to the concerns of the Ahwazis and others, do you think that that federalism would even be possible or be effective if in the event that the regime were to fall by some miracle?
Well, I think it's not basically should be a federal system. Decentralization, it can be a different form or different autonomy. We saw that in Iraqi Kurdistan region. Now Kurdish people enjoy a federalized region. They have their own rights. They exercise their own cultural rights. They enjoy their wealth from their own region. At the same time, they are interacting positively, despite all the problem that going on in Iraq with the central government in Baghdad. So Iran in the past was a country that was that had traditional federal system during Qajari era, before the emergence of Reza Shah. It was called the Protected Federalized Emirate in Ahwaz, or at that time it was called Arabistan. We have that in Kurdish Iran, Azerbaijan, and Balochistan, and they were coordinating and interacting very well with the central government in Tehran. But when Reza Shah came, he eradicated and toppled this traditional federalized emirates and established a Persian nation state based on Persian language, identity, and Shiite religion. So I think since the ethnic minorities already had the experience of the autonomy and as well as suffering almost a century of marginalization, exploitation, and domestic colonization by the central government, the federal system can at least treat some part of the challenges that Iran is facing. Though I don't know how the federal system should be implemented. It needs a very powerful determination and will, and international community should care about that, to sit with different opposition group and to form a resolution in this regard. Otherwise, if postponing all these facts after toppling the regime, we will see Iran is going to be descended into a civil war between different ethnic groups, and we will see no change. I'm not talking about frightening our poor people inside Iran or I'm not pessimistic. I am very optimistic, and I just hope that the international community, they want to see a stabilized country like Iran in the future. They have to sit with different ethnic groups in addition to Persian group, and to listen to them and to see what type of government in Iran in the future can put an end to the long decade of ethnic oppression and discrimination and marginalization that is instituted against 70% of Iran population. Now we have Ahwazi, Turk, Baluchi, and Kurdish people who are divided. They says that even federalized system is not going to treat and to put an end to Iran, to our ethnic oppression. So we should establish our own countries. But I don't see it has international receptive. But with federalized government, I think we can treat many issues. Though the Persian opposition group, even they deny their rights of autonomy to ethnic groups, and they label it as an introduction for disintegration of Iran. So that's why many ethnic groups, they do not have that motivation to take the street and fight. Yep.
How much of all of this is really about culture and identity on behalf of Persians, and how much is it really about control of the natural resources in Ahvaz? Because people who think their culture is so great, why do they care if some other ethnicity or some group shares it or not?
It's not about Ahwazi people. Basically, they do not want to take control of the entire resources and energy in Ahwaz. They first want their existence to be recognized.
No. I mean, on behalf of the Persians. I don't mean about the Ahwazis. I mean, why does the Persian care? Why do the Persians care so much about somebody else's identity? Is it really about identity for them, or is it really the concern that in the event Ahvaz gains autonomy or an independent status, they will lose access to the oil and gas?
Yeah, I understand what you are saying. I think they are using ethnic politics or as they say, separatism motive in order to deny Ahwazi people even to get 5 or 10% of the sharing of this energy on their lands. They want to deny us completely, as the regime are completely denying us. The regime is not even ready to allocate 1% of this oil and gas and water and agriculture profit that it claims from Ahwaz region. I think they don't want to see there is a ethnic minority that's kind of challenging their full economic monopoly on the resources. That's because they don't want to recognize our autonomy. They want to continue the domestic colonization and the dominate their full monopoly on economic resources on Ahwaz, while driving Ahwazi people to be in a full marginalized situation as is going on for now. And I think it will have a very a serious backlash in future. Now is the time for the change, time to that they sit and reconsider the challenges for Iran future, and to recognize Iran as a diverse country, and federal system is going to serves Iran better than to have a centralized, corrupted government that colonize 70% of Iran population and denying their rights. That's why we see 70% of Iran population living in underdeveloped areas, and it comes from the ethnic marginalization policy. If they are caring about seeing Iran a developed country, so we are a part of this country. So they have to accept that.
You know, funny that you mentioned the word colonization, because amidst international backlash against colonialism, we're seeing a very strange situation. Iran has annexed Ahwaz in 1925 as a result of a geopolitical battle between Russia and Britain. Today, they virtually erased any mention of Ahwazi, or for that matter, other minorities from history books. So people going to universities in Western countries do not learn that there are any Arabs in Iran, or where they came from, or any of that history. It's not there. And we also know that the Shah, he, you know, for all the support he's received in the West, he was somebody who himself was also interested in developing nuclear weapons potentially. He was forced to put that aside as a result of other geopolitical issues that were ongoing. But there is this assumption that if the regime leaves, Iran will automatically become a liberal, democratic, secular state friendly to the region and to the West, and completely not a security threat to anybody. I am not sure that is the case, because aside from the ethnic colonialist mindset that you have mentioned, you have generations of people who had never seen or lived under democracy, who don't know what that is, who have been penetrated by and part of the regime institutions. Can we really expect any sort of a liberal reform as a result of the regime collapsing? Is that anything that's realistic, or will that need a very formal restructuring?
I totally agree with you. I think you know, as you see that Persian opposition group are claiming that we are advocating for liberal values and democratic democratic changes going to be in Iran, but I don't think it's going to happen easily. People in Iran are experienced 4 decades of theocracy. There is boundaries between the there are cultural boundaries. For example, in Ahwaz, we cannot define the democracy that is implemented in Norway or in Britain. This region, they have their own tradition, values. They want democracy that's kind of compatible with their own situation. Even like in Saudi Arabia, can we bring about the US democracy and put it in Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia has its own traditional society. They are accepting those freedom and values that kind of tolerated among the society. In Ahwaz, in Kurdistan, in Baluchi areas, in Azerbaijani areas, they have the same. Maybe Persian region, they have experienced more individual freedom, even under the theocratic regime in Tehran. You see, you don't know that in Tehran, women have more freedom compared with the Ahwazi women, because in Ahwaz, women's, they are kind of restricted because of the patriarchy of the Ahwaz society, and also because of the regime rules that deny Ahwazi women and other women any rights. So I think we cannot bring about a uniform democratic values and to wear it to Iranian society. Iranian society is diverse, and it's each region has its own particular atmosphere or particular environment. So, and each region has its own restrictive I don't know, cultural issues. So I don't know which liberal values that they are talking about. Maybe in Tehran, who knows what. Even in Persian areas like Isfahan or Qom, or this region are very religious areas. These are protests that sparked because of the hijab. We don't see a significant turnout of Persian people in Isfahan or in Qom or even in Tehran. Tehran is at almost 12 million. So we do not see a significant change, a significant turnout of these people. And it shows that Iran society, despite being unhappy or against the Iranian regime, but they have their own beliefs. And I mean, maybe half of the population, they have no problem with the hijab. Even they oppose compulsory hijab, but many of them are considered as a part of their own culture. So that's why kind of insisting that this is only about hijab. It's not true. You can see in Tehran or in Isfahan or in Qom. In the past protests, the turnout is bigger than now. But why they are not taking the street? Because many of them are fine with the hijab. They have no problem with the hijab. At the same time, they are against the regime. So there are many challenges and many contradictions in Iranian society, and I think the international media are not observing none of those things that we are trying to explain, and this is because of many reasons. We do not have that platforms. The ethnic minorities, because of the language barriers, many of them fail to make themselves understood or clear to many organizations. And I think we have to be patient and to work patiently, and maybe we will see a change, but not now, I think.
So in other words, some of the Western supporters of these protests have been projecting their own wishful thinking. They've been trying to make it seem like the crowds, crying death to dictator, meaning Khamenei, are significantly greater than they actually are. It seems to me relatively small groups of people in different places, and they're also projecting the hijab or shadow issue from Western mindset on the people who are not all necessarily vocally opposed to that. So how successful do you think that level of support going to be in terms of providing any of the Iranians with what they need to move against the regime? Do you think the Western societies have the level of understanding of Iran that is actually helpful, or do you think they act like many visitors to the US who judge the United States by New York?
I think if they really want to help the people in Iran with all their diversity, there are many diaspora and immigrant coming from different parts of Iran, and they are basing in different countries. I think the Western countries should start initiative to bring about different voices from different ethnic and religious background in Iran, and to allow them to speak and to listen to them and do investigative research, so that the world understand the challenges first, what the people want in Iran, and then to let these people to provide solutions to put an end to the future challenges that are facing Iran in terms of ethnic demands, religious background, even water issues that Iran is facing. Iran is one of the countries that is facing a very serious water issues, but we do not see a real studies or real initiative undertaken by United States or Western countries to address this issue. If Iran is not going to witness a civil war because of the ethnic issues, Iran is going to see a serious civil war because of the water issue. Iran has 2 or 3 rivers. They are crossing Ahwaz region, and the rest of Iran doesn't have any water. Nobody cares about that. Iran is wasting this water for nuclear program or for sugarcane industry, and using the water scarcity to ignite strife between Arabs, between Kurd, between lower people, because the regime is going, because the regime will become very happy if they see that the ethnic groups are fighting each other, because they do not want to see this ethnic group kind of agree that the regime itself created this issue. And they, even in the water scarcity, they bring the ethnic issues in order to make division, so they rule. I think the international community should establish an organization that really cares about Iran, to address the challenges in terms of ethnic minorities, environment, water issues, economy. Otherwise, wishing Iran regime to be toppled is not going to solve any issue.
We have seen many of these kind of very rosy initiatives in the West, trying to bring together all these thinkers, Western analysts, and Iranian diaspora representatives. Again, they're lacking the diverse voices that you have mentioned. Although, to be honest, it's also true that there is a very small percentage in the United States in particular of these ethnic groups, at least ones that are active in the political sphere. How do you propose integrating more of these perspectives, given that there are so few of them compared to everyone else?
You mean providing a platform for...
Providing a platform, but also making them part of the decision-making process. Is there a leadership? Are there, who should, in your opinion, the West be engaging with from those groups? Who really represents them? Who is the leadership or people who should be engaged on that level in any initiatives bringing together voices about the future of the region?
And I think, as I said, that as we see now, Persian opposition group are monopolizing all the voices. All the platforms are reserved to reflect the voices of Persian opposition group. For example, we see Shah is advocating for his return to Iran and promising to establish a very positive and friendly rules in Israel. Israelis get very interested in that, while they are kind of ignoring the real challenges that are facing in Iran, which is comes from the denial of the 70% of Iran population. I mean, the ethnic non-Persian peoples. We see, for example, Masih Ali Nishad. She is advocating for the women's rights, but when a woman gets oppressed or killed in Tehran, she condemns Iran regime theocracy. But if a woman gets killed in Ahwaz, she used that as a backlash to attack the Arab ethnicity and call us, I don't know, because of because Arabs are carry a kind of misogynistic or a kind of it's inherited in their culture that they oppress the women. But she doesn't say that to if a Persian girl get killed by her family, while she used that racism against Ahwazi Arab people to victimize them more, ignoring that Arab people have been deprived of having any institution there, their cultural, their civic, their feminist movement have been imprisoned, arrested, tortured, and labeled with many security issues. Ahwaz, despite being rich, is the poorest region in the Middle East compared with its resources. This group are not representing the voices of Iranian people. The United States Constitution should know that Iran is a diverse verse. They should provide a fair, opportunity to listen to different ethnic minorities group who are scattered in United States and many countries, so that they get a new perspective, which is being hidden during all these years. The perspective that is provided to American institution and think tanks is very limited perspective, only focusing on Tehran and Persian areas, while 70% of this fact is being ignored. They keep the lid on it, actually. They don't, Persian opposition, they do not want the Western institution to have a serious understanding of Iran. And I don't know why they are fearing. They carry kind of the phobia that Iran regime instilled into their mindset, that giving and empowering the ethnic minorities' voices is helping them that in the future they break up from Iran. But I don't think so. I think Persian opposition group are playing a very negative role in this regard, and they are kind of pushing the ethnic minorities to seek and to separate their own struggle from any change in the future, seek independence from Iran because of this situation, because of this regressive views that they carry against the ethnic minorities group. They always label us as Iranian when we demand our rights, but at the same time, they use racist comment and racism against us by calling us, I don't know, terrorist Kurd, separatist Arab, savage Baluchi, or drug dealer Baluchi. But when it comes to our demands, when we approach them, oh, all of us are Iranian, and tomorrow everything will be fine, and we're going to fix everything. The same promises that Khomeini gave to ethnic minorities and then turned to be deceptive. And he issued fatwa against Kurdish people, killing thousands of Kurds, killing hundreds of Arabs, because they only demanded basic economic, cultural rights at the beginning of the Iran Islamic Revolution. So we don't want that to happen. That's why I think talking about revolution is immature, is not a wise description of what's going on in Iran. Yeah.
There is one more point that I'd like to draw attention to, which is most recently the talks of ethnic minorities in Russia and China have become more popular. There's been a gathering in Prague discussing the plight of various ethnicities that Russia has annexed over its empire years and has forced to be subservient to the main Russian culture. They've been discriminated against, denied opportunities, and disproportionately drafted into the war in Ukraine. Many of them are not particularly interested in fighting for that role. Why is it acceptable to discuss the fate of these ethnic minorities in Russia, who are mostly, various also Muslim groups, but not the Ahwazi Arabs in Iran? Why is there such a concern about a civil war or breakup in Iran and the oil and gas issues there, but not with Russia, where the situation may be slightly less dire, but otherwise very similar?
I think you have to ask the international media. They are in a good position to answer that. Yeah, I have noted that issue that you have mentioned, but I think Iranian lobbies outside the country and Persian opposition groups, they have established a very strong relationship and ties with different think tanks who managed to completely censor what's going on in Iran in terms of ethnic minorities. And I don't think that relationship or that issue can be applied to Russia and what they are doing right now in Ukraine. There are many supportive, we can see in Western countries who support Russia propaganda. But when it comes to Iran, the same analysts and commentator turning a blind eye to what's going on in Iran. So, yeah, I totally agree what you are saying. It's a good comparison, but I don't have really a clear answer for that.
Yeah, because Iran seems to be a sacred cow for generations of scholars, investors, politicians of both political parties and many others. And I don't quite understand. Well, it's a big country with this significant population. I don't want to understand why it is untouchable in terms of correcting historic concerns, in terms of addressing internal issues, or anything preceding the Islamic Republic.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting if you just take a very quick look to those studies or articles that are written about Iran. You see in 99% that they are repeating the same discourse that the Iranian regime are using, promoting Persian cultures, Persian identity, trying to introduce Iran as a monocultural, monoethnic countries. Even they confiscated the traditional foods that Ahwazi people, Kurd or Azerbaijani or Baluchi people who are for generation are famous for. They even like there are foods that are exclusively Ahwazi people are making them. But I read many stuff that they are Persians, or many foods that are Kurdish or Turkish. So I just gave you a very simple example of these huge accumulative disinformation that are existed in academia in regarding Iran's issue about ethnic minorities. I see that they are manipulating many facts. They provide always ethnic minorities are a bunch of scattered tribes and communities who always have internal dispute and conflict, which is not true. They always try to introduce or define ethnic minorities in a way that deprive them of being called nation or people. But and everyone who are familiar with the definition of nation and peoples know that if each group has its own language, culture, lands and geography, they are called people and they are distinctive from other. So Iran is not actually a nation. Iran has maybe 5 nations, Turkish or let's say people, not nation, Ahwazi people, Turkish people, Kurdish people, Azerbaijani people, and Persian. And Persian themselves they are minority, but they are majority in ruling the country. But in terms of population, they are 2 or 3 provinces, as like Ahwazi people or Kurd. But we do not see that fact.
Would it be accurate then to describe Iran as an apartheid state or something very close to that, given the level of discrimination against most ethnicities?
Excuse me, can you repeat your
Would it
question?
be accurate to call Iran an apartheid state or something close to it, given the fact that the majority of the government is of one minority ethnic group and they are oppressing everyone else?
Yeah. I have always wrote about that, and I spoke about that Iran is a country with a dominant Persian group who are dominating the country in terms of the ruling, and kind of this privileged dominant Persian minority, they are institutionalizing this discrimination against the subordinated ethnic peoples. We see, for example, in Ahwaz, during these 5 decades, there is no even one Ahwazi Arab governor allowed to govern Ahwaz. All of them were Persian. Why they do not do that? In Kurdish area are the same, in Baloch area are the same. Even they do not granting the basic positions in our regions, in terms of job, in terms of education, let alone recognizing our existence. I think this discrimination will continue if the international community keep insisting of ignoring the facts of ethnic oppression and suppression that Iranian nation state is adopted to forcibly assimilate 70% of Iran population. And I think that it's time for international media and those who are interested in Iran affairs to write and to speak and to investigate and do non-biased research about this issue in order to correct and challenge the current situation that we see is not reflected clearly internationally and regionally. Talking about regime change, I think it's a distant hope and it's not a reality. We are seeing in the media Iran is facing a very serious issues. If the regime is not going to be toppled by the protests, the regime will be toppled from itself because of many issues that it's facing. And then it would be too late to treat the challenges that we are now talking about it. It's time to provide solution, to recognize the issue, to work on it, to treat it. Otherwise, keeping ignoring it and letting our minds to dream about positive change and bringing liberal and democratic values to Iran, it's a wishful thinking.
Thank you so much for this insightful discussion. It seems to me that unless there is a way to educate the Iranian society about openness to other cultures and finding a way to overcome the disunity, the racism, and the discriminatory ideology that it is now facing, the regime is actually less likely to fall rather than by engaging with the Ahwazis, with Kurds, with Baluchis, and everyone else. Azerbaijani Turks represent a very significant portion of the country. They're a significant force in the military. Imagine if at one point they decide to turn away from supporting this infrastructure and towards a different world. That alone could be a game changer. That's something to keep in mind for those who truly do care about a future, and they need to start looking past slogans and past videos that don't fully reflect the reality, and start looking for a deeper understanding of the entire society. I think that would be at least a good start for future discussions.
Yeah, I add just one thing, that if we want to see a real change in Iran, the international community and Western organizations should really invest on empowering the civic society in Iran, which is also is diverse. They have to give attention to Ahwazi women's plight, to the children living there, to the Baluchi women, and not only care about the Persian ladies in Tehran, which they have more freedom, even in this situation, and to address the challenges that are facing the Ahwazi people based on their cultural, their identity issues, and the long legacy of oppression. Same in Balochistan, Kurdistan, and Azerbaijan, so that we can provide a real solution to the challenges that are facing our people, but only talking and reflecting the image of Tehrani people and considering them as the vanguard of progressive freedom fighters is not going to change anything. We have a way to start from now and to raise awareness and to help to empower the civic society in Ahwaz, in other areas who are marginalized, in prisons, tortured, and labeled with many negative charges. Thank you so much, Irina, for providing this valuable opportunity to me, and hope I'm looking forward to watch it again from your radio, I think, right?
Yes, thank you so much for being part of this very thought-provoking discussion. This was Rahim Hamid. Please check out his articles, his work, his background, and follow his future research, which has already provided invaluable insights into the parts of region in Iran and Ahwazi society that most people never hear about it. For those joining us, this was the Washington Outsider Report on the Coalition Radio, and we'll be back next week, same time, 9 p.m. Tuesday.
Thank you, and have a good one.